Spend some time every day with your favorite hobby. Like, what is your favorite thing to do? Do you even get to do it? Whatever that thing is, like, spend some time every single day doing it. Again, it doesn't have to be anything major. It doesn't have to be. If nothing else, just getting out of your normal day to day environment and getting into a new environment, that alone can invigorate you. It can recharge you. I mean, it just gives you such a different focus when you're around different people or in different environments and a different city, different setting. There's something about it that's very invigorating. What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of Quiet Voice, Fearless Mind with your host, Terrence Lee, aka the Introvert Leader. And I'm excited. I'm excited to be talking to you all today. Just came back from a vacation. I've been off the grid here for a few weeks, and so it feels good to be back and be recording, talking about something that is really something I've struggled with and something that I know a lot of you at times might have struggled with, might currently be struggling with. And it's how to recharge, the importance of recharging. Coming back from the trip, I can tell you I have just a different perspective. I feel really refreshed. And so I want to talk about the importance of recharging because it's something that I don't think just as humans we do enough. And so I really want to get into it. And when we think about a phone, right? And most of you that are listening to this, more than likely, you probably charge your phone every day. Most likely, if you're like me, you try to remember to put it on the charger every night before you go to bed, right? Like that's pretty much one of my habits is before I'll lay down and go to bed, I've got my charger and I put my phone on the charger, right? And there are some times where I forget to do that. Like there are some times where I'm just tired and I fall out, and I wake up in the morning and check my phone and it's on like 5% or it's on 7% or whatever. And sometimes the phone just dies. And when that happens, I have to recharge the phone to give it energy, right? But I feel like for a lot of us, and I could be speaking for myself here, I don't know if you're the same way, we don't handle our lives that way. We just continue to go, you know, or if we do charge, it's for a very limited amount of time. Like we'll have these little spurts where we'll try to charge, we'll try to recoup, we'll try to build up some energy to do things, but we get caught up in our routines. We get caught up in our day to day and we don't really take the time to fully recharge the same way that we'll put that phone on a charger and let it recharge and let it get its energy up. We as human beings, a lot of times, don't do that. Our society is so fast paced. And, I know that some of you listening are in different parts of the world. And so it's interesting when I talk to people from areas outside the United States. I know that there are some cultures that are not particularly the way that America is, right? Where maybe it's a culture that has a more relaxed atmosphere. I know that when I've gone to some islands in the Caribbean, one of the reasons that I love being there is just the different attitude and different approach to things. I remember going to the Bahamas for the first time and everybody was just so relaxed. It was like, why are you rushing? Why are you in such a hurry? A lot of us here in the States, there's just this constant hustle, go, go, go attitude. And I think that it can be harmful. It can be harmful because you don't think to take the time to stop and really recharge. And so I want to just get into a few things. And one thing I want to talk about is what are the things that drive the need to recharge? Like, why do we need to do it? What are some things that can cause us to really have to recharge and reset our batteries, right? The first thing that I'll say is just socialization, socializing, right? So when we think about in particular, if you're, listening to the show and you're more of an introvert like me, people can take a lot out of us They can. Let's be real. I mean, social interaction, when it's the right social interaction, when it's with people that we enjoy conversing with and sharing thoughts and sharing ideas and everything like that, that can be invigorating. Like, I love it. I mean, if we're talking about, anything from college basketball to podcasting to leadership to books, which I love. I'm a huge book nerd, love to read. Like, I can think of a bunch of topics. I can go all day about topics that I love talking about, but it has to be a certain kind of conversation with the right kind of person, and we're vibing off each other and everything like that. I can do that all day. Now, there are other kind of conversations where when I'm having those conversations, and if I have them for too long, I get drained. I do, and it's not even that I don't necessarily like that person or I have some kind of issue or anything like that, but just the socialization of it. If it's small talk, if it's something that doesn't interest me, if it's something where the conversation is kind of dragging out, it can start to wear my battery down socially. I'm just going to be honest. And so you may be the same way. You may have those kind of conversations. And when you're in those moments, you eventually feel a need to recharge and break away. So socialization can be something that causes us to need to recharge. Another thing is just work. Work, I touched on it a little bit earlier, but so much of society is driven by financial success. So much of it is driven by status and working to get to some level, to climb some ladder, or to get to whatever that goal might be, that I feel like so many people focus on. And it ends up a lot of times breaking us down, because it's like we're trying to chase this thing, and all the work that goes into chasing that thing, we're working, we're working, we're working, we're working. But when are we resting? When are we recharging? It's just as important to put in that work as it is to rest and not work, right? But a lot of times we don't do that. So that can cause us to really have to recharge when we're just working too much. And I am absolutely talking about myself here, and I'll get into that here a little bit later. Another thing is stress and worry. When we're stressed and when we're worrying about things, it causes a need to recharge. I mean, I can think of so many different times. For me, I'll tell you all about my main one right now. My main thing right now is a lot of times in my life, I don't feel like I'm getting enough done. I just don't. I feel like I'll have this to do list, and for every two things that I get done in a day, there are like five new things that pop up. And it's this never ending like hamster wheel of trying to get things done between business and work, my personal life, family things, like all of these different things that I'm constantly trying to complete. I complete some of them, but then a lot I don't. And it begins to feel like this never ending thing. Now, I'm trying to put a lot of things in place to help me with that. I don't know if you might be the same way, where you just begin to get stressed about some particular thing, or some particular thing worries you. And because you feel that stress or you feel that worry, you really need to recharge. You need some time to break away from that thing, or to change your mentality, or just have a different approach to it. But that can be hard, right? It can be hard to do that. So, stress and worry is another thing that can cause us to really need to recharge. And so, what are some of the consequences when we don't recharge? Like, what does that do to our psyche? What does that do to our mentality, right? So one of the things is burnout. It's just burnout. When you think about people that are constantly working, you know, sometimes the financial gain or the things that somebody might achieve, it's interesting. I've heard the question asked about, and people throw this out, the scenario all the time, right? But it's like, would you want to be a billionaire, right? Would you want to be a billionaire? And it's interesting. I read a story about Phil Knight, the creator of Nike, right? Huge, world renowned. I mean, basically the number one sneaker brand in the world, right? Huge. And this guy was just Shoe Dog. I think that's his nickname, right? Amazing businessman. I mean, like his story and what he has accomplished is amazing. But I did read where one of his sons, I believe it is, they don't really have a relationship, you know, and that's not the only billionaire where I've read something similar to that, right? Like basically a lot of what I've read, and this is in no way like discounting or anything like that, people that have a high financial status. I mean, hey, more power to them. But I have asked myself the question, would I want that life with the amount of time away from family it would take, with the amount of sacrificing, not just sacrificing, but sacrificing things that are extremely important? Would it be worth that to do that amount of work? And for me, I arrived on the answer being no. Now, I'm not going to lie. I mean, if I could become a billionaire tomorrow, am I going to turn it down? No, I'm not saying that. And I do work very hard, and I'm happy with my life, and I continue to strive, and I have a lot of goals that I'm gonna be honest, are financially driven. So it's not saying that I wouldn't do that, but you have to ask yourself the question: is it worth constantly working? Is it worth constantly trying to chase things or go up a ladder and burning yourself completely out in the process? I'm not saying not to work. I'm not saying not to work hard. I'm not saying not to go after goals or things like that, because I do as well. But if you're listening to this and you feel like you're constantly working, but you're never recharging, you are more than likely at some point going to burn out. So that's just something to think about. I think another thing is exhaustion. Exhaustion. Sleep is very important. Sleep is, in a lot of cases, just as important for our health as what we eat. The foods we eat, getting exercise, getting movement in our bodies, getting our blood flowing, like the amount of rest we get. If we don't get rest, it's just like driving a car around with no gas. I don't know about you, but when I have not had a good night's sleep, it's tough. And maybe it's because I'm getting a little older. I don't know. But when I get like a really good night's sleep and couple that with like some good exercise the next morning, man, I am ready to go. I am like in my optimal state of mind. When I get those two things paired together, sleep and exercise, I'm going to be good to go. Also with a, good healthy breakfast, everything like that, I am good. But when you don't get rest, you begin to get exhausted, and then couple that with continuing to do that over time, it just exhausts us out. So that's another consequence that can happen when we don't rest and we don't recharge, as we feel exhausted. Another thing that I'll say is anxiety, feeling anxious. When we don't rest our mind, rest our body, we can begin to feel anxious about things. There are so many times in my life where my anxiety has kicked in, and a lot of it was because I just hadn't taken the time to reset. I was just in a go, go, go mode, no rest, no stopping. And the next thing I knew, something would happen, and then I would begin to feel anxious. I would begin to feel this feeling of like feeling trapped. I don't know if you've ever had an anxious feeling before. Maybe you've had feelings of social anxiety, or maybe you've had feelings of just general anxiety where your body begins to like shut down. Like I've had times where I felt like I couldn't move. I literally had so much on my plate and so much on my mind that it began to take over. And I don't want you to feel that. I don't want us to go through that. And so, those are just a few things that can happen when we don't rest, we don't recharge the way that we should. And so with the show today, I really hope that we'll be able to break down a few ways that you can recharge in a positive way, in a way that's going to help you, and a way that's going to be beneficial. Introverts are too quiet and too weak to lead. Have you ever heard this before? Well, my name is Terrence, and for years as an introvert, I didn't think I had what it took to be a leader. What I learned was Being an introvert is my superpower. If you want to learn how to have success as an introvert, then go to quietvoicefearlessleader.com to learn more. So what are some ways to recharge? What are some ways to do it? We're going to get into 4 specific ones. And, there are so many more things you can do, but these are just 4 that, I thought of that I think you could really find beneficial. So the first one, which may seem boring, it may seem like, why is he talking about this? But go take a walk. Go take a walk. So much of our time, especially in the post-COVID era of people working from home and a lot of virtual conversations, virtual meetings, a lot less just interaction of person to person. A lot of people spend time indoors. Now, for my fellow introverts, you may love that. And I understand. But I will say that getting a breath of fresh air and getting outside and just going for a walk. I mean, even if it's not that long of a period of time, but when you need to just break away, when you've had too much social interaction, or when something is getting on your nerves, or when something is bothering you, or something just you feel like things are caving in, go outside and just go for a walk. There's something that it does. I don't know. I mean, even when I literally just walk around the corner to get the mail in our neighborhood, I mean, I'm able to clear my head. Looking around, I'm hearing the birds chirping, I'm looking at the trees, like I'm getting kind of just lost in my thoughts. Like it really helps me to clear my head. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's something about just the being outside, the air, the atmosphere. But I would highly recommend if you begin to feel anxious, you begin to feel worried, you feel like you need to recharge and just break away from everything, go outside, go for a walk, get some fresh air. So the next thing, and this is really big, but spend some time every day with your favorite hobby. Like, what is your favorite thing to do? Do you even get to do it? Whatever that thing is, like spend some time every single day doing it. I have to, with my day to day, put in the things that I enjoy. So, I love reading, right? And I also love writing. So those 2 things, I have to put them in my schedule. If I don't put them in my schedule, I'm not going to do them. And I know that when I get to do those things, I'm going to feel rejuvenated. So if you listen to this right now, I want you to write down 5 things that you just love to do. Like, what are 5 hobbies? And they don't have to be anything major. I mean, it may be that you enjoy sitting in the house, turning on Netflix and watching a good movie or binge watching a show. That's fine. Like, what is that hobby? What is that thing you enjoy doing? Write down 5 of those things and then literally commit it to your schedule. Like, figure out, when am I going to consistently do these things? Because it helps to just take your mind off of whatever's going on, allows you to recharge, allows you to just break away from some of the mundane or some of the stressful things that might be going on in life. So one of the other great ways to recharge, and I think that this one is something that I started to do here over the past probably year or so, and I found that it really makes a big difference. And it's to take a media fast. From time to time, take a fast away from media. And here's what I mean: like screens, phones. I mean, the amount of time that we spend just looking at screens every day. It's amazing when you look at the stats on how much the average person spends looking at a screen. I'm looking at a screen right now while I'm recording the podcast, right? It's just become a part of our lives, between the phones, between television, movies, media, our computers, everything. And so from time to time, I do a complete media fast where I'm not watching TV, I'm not watching movies. I break away from my phone, even with my social media, and I do a lot of social media with my Introvert Leader brand, but I break away completely. We took a trip to Cabo here a few years ago, and that was the first time since I had launched the Introvert Leader that I did not go on social media for a full week. Matter of fact, I did not look at my phone for, I want to say it was about 3 days in a row. Now there was like, one time where I was just checking something really quick on the phone. So I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't look at my phone the entire week, but it was a good like 3 days in a row. And then I checked something, for maybe a few minutes or something, put my phone right back in the room, and then didn't look at it again for another few days. So like it's possible. Now, if you have emergencies, or if you know that somebody is going to be calling you or something like that, that I get it. Like, we have things in life that happen. You need to be able to contact folks. But from time to time, just break away from the screens, like break away from media completely. And why am I saying that? What does it have to do with recharging? Well, it's because there's so much stimulation on social media. There's so much stimulation in the media, period. You see so many images, and some of these things can be helpful, but some of them aren't. And some of them can cause us to be anxious, right? Like when you're looking at, depending on who you follow or what you watch, some things, if it's going to trigger some thought that's not going to help us. For example, you might be following some people that in your perception are doing better in life, or in your perception they're where you want to be, or they're doing something that you want to do, and now you begin to compare yourself to those people. I call it the Instagram effect, where everyone appears to have it all together, but what you don't know is when they turn off the camera they really don't, but you never see that. And for some people, constantly looking at that, constantly taking in those images, that can have a negative effect. You can begin to look at your life in not the way that you should, even though none of us should ever compare ourselves to other people. That can be a natural human reaction to do that. So that's an example of, when you completely break away from all that stuff, you break away from any feelings of, I have to be like this person, or, oh, look at this person's house or this person's car, or what they're doing, or what's going on there. You break away from all of it, and you just be. You just be, I can't tell you, when I don't have my phone, I'm not looking at anything. I'm going for a walk like we talked about, a little earlier, or whatever I'm doing, and I'm just being still. There's something about that that's amazing. So I would highly recommend, from time to time, break away from the media, break away from the phones, let all that stuff go, and just live your life. So the last recommendation for recharging I will talk about is to take a vacation. Take a vacation, and it does not have to be expensive. It does not have to be somewhere far away. It does not have to be something grand. It could literally just be a quick road trip, or it could be a flight to some near city, or whatever the case is. So recently here, we took a road trip. We actually passed through 8 different states, and it was much needed. It was much needed. I have been working a lot. I pretty much always work a lot. I mean, that's just my pace. That's just what I'm used to with what I do. And I can't complain. I'm not going to sit here and complain about my life. I live a great life, but I do, from time to time, get stressed. I'm not going to lie. When I look at all the things I have to do, when I look at the things that I feel like I'm not getting done, it can be a lot. It can be a lot. Here recently, I've realized that I cannot do everything on my own. I have been taking some steps to try to get a team in place for some various things that I do, but I'm still not all the way there yet. I'm still trying to kind of get to that point. And so, in the meantime, I have a lot on my shoulders. And so, taking a vacation and getting to just totally break away was great, and it was needed. And I didn't realize how much I needed it until we were there. We were in these places. I mean, we went to the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee, and there's this one particular place called Anakista where you're up on the mountains, and they have all these different tourist attractions and everything. And at one point, I'm sitting there, and there are other people sitting around, and you're just like looking over the mountains, and it's just so peaceful and it's beautiful, and the hills and the trees and all of this. And everybody is just chilling, and everybody was just relaxing. And the feeling of being up there was so great. And so, when's the last time that you just took a vacation? When's the last time that you had unhurried time? Time where you don't have to just jump to the next thing. You don't have to worry about your schedule and all the specific things you have to do from 1 minute to the next and all of that. You break away from all of that and you're just on vacation and you're relaxing. It is something that I don't do nearly often enough. It's something that I don't know how often you get to do that. But again, it doesn't have to be anything major. It doesn't have to be. If nothing else, just getting out of your normal day to day environment and getting into a new environment, that alone can invigorate you. It can recharge you. I mean, it just gives you such a different focus when you're around different people or in different environments and a different city, different setting. There's something about it that's very invigorating. So would highly recommend that, you know, just plan out some vacations, plan out some time away, plan out some trips. It does not have to be far, does not have to be major, but it's really important for resetting your mindset and resetting how you're thinking. So, listen, I hope you enjoyed the episode on how to recharge. Again, this is one that I think is very important. We have to make sure that we consistently do this in order to be our best selves and to really just be in a good space. And so, I want to leave with a quote before we go. And the quote says, "Take a break and give your soul what it needs." Take a break and give your soul what it needs. And that is by Audrey Kitchen. So you think about the soul, you think about everything that you might do from day to day and all the things that may seem to matter in life. And really, when it's all over and done, there's going to be a tombstone and it's going to say something about you and the people that will gather around when you're being talked about, right? And again, not to get morbid here with the ending of the show, but I think it's very important. Nobody's going to talk about the money that you made. Nobody's going to talk about what you did at your job or on your business. They're going to talk about how you made them feel. They're going to talk about the type of life that you lived. That's what's going to matter at the end of the day. So, what feeds your soul? What are the things that if you were to not be able to do them, you would have regrets about not doing them? If you were to not be able to feed your soul, to feed your interests, to feed your hobbies, to really recharge and just live a life of purpose and live a life where you feel full, what are those things you love to do? What are those things that can feed that? And whatever those things are, write those things down and lean into what those things are. Because ultimately, when we don't get to do those things, and when we feel like we're not full, we feel like we're not recharged, we're constantly being drained by work, by bad socialization, by stress and worry. And it's just this constant thing we're going through. When we're in that space, we're going to have regret and we're not going to live our best life. So focusing on purpose, focusing on things that make us full, focusing on things that feed our soul, that is the key. So as always, remember, there's only one you and there's only one life. So make it count. God bless.